Reckless Speculation Thursday here, and
Reckless speculation.
this isn't necessarily like trade or free agency speculation. It's more end-of-season award speculation here. And we'll start with an article from our guy Dane Mizutani from the Pioneer Press entitled, Forget Kirko Chains, which is his nickname when he's got his shirt
Ultra
off.
personality,
wearing chains.
Kirko.
Yeah. It's time to call Kirk Cousins an MVP candidate. I'm going to read you a couple things here. It might sound crazy to use Cousins and MVP in the same sentence, especially considering he's been the standard for average quarterback play in the NFL for much of his career. To that point, Cousins, at the ripe old age of 34, deserves credit for changing the narrative this season, his 11th as a pro. He's been the personification of clutch and is the biggest reason the Vikings are a perfect 6-0 in games decided by a single possession. And then if you go over to like Bet Online, there's a few places you can find these odds. Kirk Cousins right now has the 6th best odds to win the 2022 MVP award. Josh Allen is even money. Jalen Hurts is 5-1. Patrick Mahomes is 7.5-1. Lamar Jackson 9-1. Herbert 20-1. Kirk Cousins a long shot at 25-1, but 6th best odds to win most valuable player. What do you think?
So I know where this is coming from, like a place of the team's been successful. They've been, record-wise really good. And when that happens, the quarterback gets credit. But Kirk Cousins is in no way, shape, or form, in my opinion, an MVP candidate because this is all about the team itself. And Kirk's done a great job at doing what Kirk should do. So, I think it's funny because, statistically, as we've discussed previously quite a bit, this is one of his worst years, which I'm fine with. I'm not criticizing him. He's been great. He's been great for what he's supposed to do. And I understand the MVP thought process. But I mean, Phil, when you look at it, you look at what he's done, it's been impressive. But if we're talking MVP, right? Kirk Cousins is, in my opinion, in no way what we would consider to be the traditional one. Now, has he been a great teammate? Absolutely. Has he been a clutch player? Absolutely. But, when we're talking about the top of the list of MVP candidates for the 2022 season, basically halfway through, Kirk Cousins isn't in that conversation, in my opinion, but I get the steam for it.
So, okay, I partially agree, partially disagree with you. If you start to look at what is it, because we actually did a full Purple Daily on this before the season when some of the MVP odds came out, and it wasn't like Michael Irvin was calling him an MVP, and there was a couple other guys. Like Michael Irvin said he's going to be the MVP back in August, if I remember correctly.
Something like that.
And so we reacted to that on Purple Daily and kind of went through, all right, well, let's go down that path for a second. What does the DNA of an MVP quarterback look like? What does that resume look like? And almost always it's 11 or more regular season wins, which Kirk Cousins has never been a part of that, but they're tracking for that this year. It's also putting up big numbers and even the perception that you are changing games at the end. Maybe you're changing losses into wins through clutch performances at the end of games. So there has to be a certain level of team success, individual clutchness, and then overall individual numbers and statistics. If those are the three bins, he's checking 2 of those boxes right now. So big team win total. You're not going to give the MVP award to a 9 or an 8 win team unless someone just puts up insane numbers across the board. It's almost always 11, 12, 13 win teams that produce MVP. So okay, how many teams are going to win 12 or more games or 11 or more games? Not that many. It's like a handful of teams. So already the list of candidates shrinks. Okay, well, he currently leads the NFL in fourth quarter comebacks this year with 4. What if he gets 2 or 3 more and all of a sudden he has 7 fourth quarter comebacks at the end of the year?
Absolutely clutch. But Your third one's the important one. I
But
think
but Judd, the third one is the one that he's been great at his whole career, which is
I
putting up
know.
box score numbers.
And
So what if all of a sudden he starts putting up box score numbers?
well, yes, then it changes. But and I don't care about the stats, but the voters do. So like when we're really talking about this, do I think he's been great? Absolutely, I personally do. But like when we're talking about the award itself, that third bin. Now, if that changes and he statistically starts to light up the box score and continue to win, then it completely changes. And yes, he definitely becomes a candidate. I'm just saying, as of right now, the stats would be held against him, fair or not, because I love this guy. Like, this is what I've wanted. But when we're talking about is he an MVP candidate, which is an award that is voted on by writers, I think it's 50, who sit down and crunch a bunch of things, including stats. Those stats aren't there yet, and that's why I don't think that he would be. I mean, he might be in the outside of the conversation, just outside of it, but he's not going to get a ton of steam unless those stats change. And if that does, well, then it's on.
He currently ranks, just to see where he kind of stacks up with these stats. He will have to improve these numbers. He currently ranks 15th in passer rating. That's not a number that I would use, as like the gospel for great quarterback performance, but you got to have a big passer rating if you want to win MVP. He has an 89.5 passer rating. That's not winning you an MVP.
Correct.
Tua leads the NFL at 115.9. That is a number that would get people's attention if the Dolphins finish like 11-6 or whatever. So he's basically 35 points off of the top quarterback rating. And Jalen Hurts is number 2. Geno Smith has a 107.2 pass rating. In terms of yardage, Cousins is 13th in the NFL this season. Touchdown passes, he is 10th. So some of these numbers, even if it's garbage time, will have to improve if he wants to climb the MVP candidate odds. But the team success is the thing that has prevented him from maybe being in that conversation when the numbers were great. But of course, the numbers that were great, if you dig a little deeper, and we've done this a million times on Purple Daily, third down success, clutch, last 4 minutes of the fourth quarter, he kind of disappears in those big moments or against the best teams. But to something else you were saying, and I do agree with this, it does feel like the team and the infrastructure that is being built here is elevating Kirk more than Kirk is just dragging a collection along, right? It doesn't feel like, oh man, if it wasn't for Kirk, this buffoon head coach and this awful offensive line and these weapons, like he's making these receivers a lot of money. It feels like the whole water level has risen in large part because of Kevin O'Connell, and the defense is playing a little bit better too. And so Kirk's boat is rising along with all the other boats. Not, Kirk is
Kirk
filling the pool with water and raising all the boats on his own,
Kirk didn't take this team by the lapels himself and say, okay, screw it, it's Kirko time. Which, by the way, I think that's hilarious. But yes, O'Connell has unlocked a lot here, which is why I do think, despite the success of Philadelphia and the Giants, I think O'Connell right now, in my opinion, is coach of the year in this league, because what he has done is really impressive. And I applaud Kirk. I mean, Kirk's done a fantastic job of doing what we have asked for years now. But yes, in the nuanced conversation that can win you the MVP, those stats aren't going to get you the votes. Tua also, to go back to that, is an interesting case because of this. I believe that when he starts, he is 6-1. So, like, you're going to look at Tua and the Dolphins and be like, geez, when Tua didn't start, this was a really average football team. When Tua starts, they're really good. And so it's things like that. Now, to Kirk's credit, he does not miss time.
Yeah.
Which there was, I saw some stuff this week about, we should give Kirk credit for his toughness. I don't think anyone's ever said that guy's not tough. Do you? Like, we've always talked about it. The fact that he has started every game except for the COVID, and then he sat out a game because the playoff position in 2019. Besides that, I mean, that to me is the single most impressive thing about his career, is the fact that he does not miss time, and there's no way that he has started every game healthy.
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of a hair to split here. He's very durable.
Yep.
And he's pretty tough because he does take some hits. But he's also pretty good at avoiding big hits. He's cerebral in that way. You don't see Peyton Manning throughout his career. He's actually kind of like that in terms of just career preservation. But do I think of him as, when I think of tough quarterbacks, I think of guys that are going to stand in there against pressure all day long, get the brakes beat off of them, and then come back with a fourth quarter game-winning drive anyways. That version of Kirk exists this year and some of last year kind of in a vacuum. That version did not necessarily exist the first 3 years as a Viking. It felt like he was, and he's still a little skittish against pressure. He doesn't exactly perform at a peak level against pressure, but he's passable. So I think he's very durable. I think he's shown some major moments of toughness. I'm not going to put him in the Brett Favre Toughness Hall of Fame or anything like that. But yeah, on the Coach of the Year, I just pulled this up. Nick Sirianni is the absolute odds-on favorite right now to be Coach of the Year. He's a minus 135. And then Kevin O'Connell is number 2 at plus 650. So Sirianni. And then Kevin O'Connell, Brian Daboll, Pete Carroll, Robert Saleh, Mike McDaniel, and Mike McCarthy. Who is tops on a lot of firing lists.
There's times to change that for Mike.
Well, he's safe. He's not getting fired in season anymore at this point.
No, but I mean, he certainly could accidentally submarine 2 or 3 games.
Yes.
He's got that ability. I just think what O'Connell has done with a roster largely intact from 2 miserable years, and with Kirk, especially at Kirk's age, is really impressive.
Yep. I agree. Yep. It does, but people take that as a knock too, like the Cousins Crusaders. Oh, of course you're not going to give Cousins credit. It's like,
we're already getting pushback about that.
This is all about the Vikings. And yes, Kirk deserves some credit, but Kevin O'Connell comes in here, changes a lot of cultural things. He's got, I think, and we'll go through some of the numbers on the state of the offense on Purple Daily today too. But yeah, so I guess my grand point here is I think he has a better shot at MVP than you do, because I think the only box that's left to be checked is the box that he loves checking throughout his career. Big numbers. Yep. There's not been a lot of garbage time. If they can create more garbage time moments for him, he can continue to stockpile numbers. But they need to get out to some big leads.
I was going to say they'd have to take 20-point leads, which this team never does.
Yeah.
Or at least
or they need to be trailing
points.
Or something, and he needs to be... they're down by 20, and he puts up a 400-yard game trying to come back in the second half or something like that. So, you got any purple positivity candles over there? You got any left in the Judd Zolgad store?
Dawn got them, and she has used them all. Guess what? Because they are so great. They make our house smell great. They're very cool. And if you're saying right now, purple positivity candle, what's that, Judd? I'm going to tell you from our friends at Spiral Light Candles. We started these actually when the season began, and I talked about the fact that they were there in good or bad because a candle will help calm you down. But I mean, at 7-1, this season's been a celebration. And how do you celebrate? You burn a purple positivity candle after each win. And Spiral Light, they've also got candles for the holidays, for Christmas gifts, for birthday gifts. SpiralLightCandles.com. SpiralLightCandles.com. Go to the site, check out the choices. They're fantastic. And again, if you're a Vikings fan, Purple Positivity Candle might be atop your list as a gift. SpiralLightCandles.com.
All right. That's your Mackey and Judd Reckless Speculation Thursday.
Reckless speculation.
We will have a Flagrant Howls episode later today. Kyle
I mean,
and I was doom scrolling Twitter last night, just texting each other, just seething. We're ready to...
They're so bad that there's a lot to talk about. That's the thing is, it's been so bad. It's not like boring. It's alarming.
Yeah. At some point though, it's just going to turn to apathy again.
Sure.
Oh yeah. I knew there was going to be it wasn't just going to be like a smooth sailing, 10-2 record through 12 games, but this is,
I don't know.
No one's coming to save the day.
I don't know how much he can say it because he doesn't officially own the team, but he certainly has a stake. But I tweeted this last night. Mark Lowry, I'd love to hear what you think of this, because I don't think he's going to take this. I mean, he's not in this just for the fun of it, or this is clearly a passion. And when, he clearly had a big role in a lot of things here. Like, it's not like, oh, you traded for Gobert. I didn't know that was coming.
Yeah.
I would really like to know, because I think he's going to be a proactive dude here. And this cannot be this. When you're seeing your team boot off the floor in an arena that you would really like to replace because your team is good, that's got to be disconcerting.
I did hear him. He was on a friend of the show, Craig Kilborn's podcast last week, and Lord Kilby was asking him a couple questions like throughout a 50-minute discussion about, the kind of the rough start. And he did say, like, he didn't get too much into it, but he said, yeah, we're definitely not time to freak out or anything. It's just you got to let this thing play out. I am curious to see, though, is he going to be knee-jerk guy at some point, or is he going to be patient guy? My guess is he's going to lean toward more patient, because throughout his building businesses in the past, he's in the businesses he's building now, it's all long-term view stuff that he has gotten into.
Wolves fans don't have time for that. They'll disappear again.
But just making dumb reactions is also going to make it worse.
Yes.
But the one thing you can do right away is just extract D'Lo from the situation. Right. He drags the energy down. He's bad. He's a space cadet, and it just needs to stop. Anyways,
he didn't know he was supposed to check in.
I know, dude. It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. All right, this has been Mackey and Judd, daily Minnesota sports entertainment, therapy, and in the case of Thursdays, speculation.
Reckless speculation.
We'll see you guys over on Purple Daily.